welcome to the fourth and final review of the session. Up this time is a game called Zotrix Starglider. If you recall, we did review a Zotrix game a few years ago. That was Zotrix Solar Division. That was not just the first game in this series, that was a completely different genre. That was a tower defense game. This is a vertical shooter. Um, Shmup, if you will. Zotrix is an arcade space shooter inspired by early shooter games on the arcade machines from the 80s and early 90s. Designed for all generations, it contains levels with nice and colorful enemies, while focuses on the arcade element of the gameplay. Chains of enemy ships are lining up one by one while you perform maneuvers to clear the perimeter and avoid being cleared out yourself. Victory doesn't come easy, as you have to earn every single score point. Each stage consists of 3 waves of enemies, where each wave is more challenging. Carve your way towards the final battle, where you unlock new ships and gain rewards. Special type of gameplay is designed for 2-player mode. You and a friend are pit against the Zotrix aliens to cooperate and find the right balance to survive and win. Yeah, so sounds like a pretty standard shmup from the PR.
Mm-hmm.
So, since this is a Nintendo Switch game, over to Gallitz.
Yeah, I think the only things this might have in common with Star Division, which I'm sorry I don't remember much of the details of, is the some of the ship and alien designs. It's a very
I think specifically
low number of pixels, but that's mostly because it's zoomed out and it wants to be precise, I guess. What were you saying?
I think it's specifically the aliens that are the Zotrix.
Yeah, it's the same setting, but there's not a significant plot here, so. So here are things that set this apart from certain other vertical shooters. One, and really obvious, you can turn. You use the right stick to aim your thing. That's nice because that's often a feature that is distinctively lacking in space shooters, space shmups, so that they can do dickish things like attack from behind you. And you're still flying in one direction, and when they attack from behind you, it's a pain, but at least you can turn and shoot at them instead of having to wait for them to get around you. Your upgrade still on things that separate you apart. While the upgrade path is pretty linear, you just get double lasers and then triple lasers and then 1.5 times as powerful lasers. And then in certain stages there are health power-ups, and in certain stages there are temporary shoot all around you power-ups. You do, if you make it to stage 5 of, I believe, 10, and die, you unlock a new ship, and the new ships generally have more firepower and are more maneuverable, but at the cost of the cooldown on the gun is or the overheat on the gun is shorter. Speaking of which, the guns in this game have overheat, which sometimes I hate but in this game it's kind of actually interesting because, I mean, in a lot of these games, if you're playing a space shooter, you're just expected to be holding onto the shoot button the whole time, and you're just constantly shooting. And in this game, it gives you a reason to temporarily stop shooting. And you don't have to stop shooting for long to cool off. It's like a split second to cool off. And also, when you are overheating, it does not actually keep you from shooting. It just cuts your rate of fire in half. So between those two things, it keeps it being something to think about without being a complete pain in the ass. There are no, as it said in the ad copy, each stage is 3 phases or 3 waves of enemies. You get basically a percentage grade of how many things you got in each phase, but also There aren't actually stage bosses until the second half of the game, and even then they're not like right at the end of the stage always. It's just sometimes in the second half of the game there's a bigger boss. There's a bigger enemy with a life bar that spawns smaller enemies. It's nice that you can shoot down bullets as well as shooting down enemy ships because otherwise you'd die a lot. And there is a mechanism that I keep forgetting to use here. The controls here are left stick to move, right stick to aim, right trigger to fire, and left trigger is I think it's called space dive function, which your ship gets visually smaller and is invincible for 4 seconds, I think. This is mostly used to spot dodge when you're really getting crammed in. Or when you need to fly through a line of ships or something. You can still shoot while you're doing the space dive. But again, I keep forgetting it's there, so. You do have a life bar in this. Your ship will still pretty much blow up if you crash into anything bigger than the smallest enemies, but you can take a few of the little bullets without dying, which is nice because the little bullets are everywhere. The music seemed good from what I can tell, but the sound effects are by default, and you should still be shooting most of the time, and when you're shooting, you can't really hear the music. I kind of wish you didn't have to get to stage 5 before dying to unlock a new thing, but I also don't think I think there are only like 7 ships to unlock, so I guess expecting you to put in some time to make progress that way is reasonable. But it took me a couple of runs before I made it to stage 5, so. There are some in-game achievements. The first several are quite easy. Killing certain numbers of people with enemies with your gun at various stages. And then there are ones for like getting to a certain point in the game with a certain number of lives, which there is a mechanism for getting extra lives. It's after you kill every, I think, 1,000 enemies, you get an extra life. And when you lose a life, it actually doesn't tell you that's what happened. Like in a lot of games, when you lose a life, your new ship visibly flies onto the screen. In this one, it just instantly spawns where you were. But the only way you're penalized for it is that you lose 1 level of gun power up, and the gun power ups drop like every 30 seconds or something. It's actually pretty fast. So unless you screw up a lot in a short period of time, it's not that big of a deal, except for the fact that you only have 5 lives to start with, and it takes quite a while to get extra lives. And yeah, occasionally the weapon power-ups always fall down onto the screen in the middle of the screen, which sometimes is a pain because sometimes there's a lot of enemies there. And occasionally the game throws a health power-up at you, and also when you're in one of the stages where it gives you the shoot all around you power-ups, which I remember seeing is number of times you shoot based and not time based, so you can hold your fire and save it. To some extent, obviously, you can't really hold your fire for very long on account of there's always enemies to shoot at. So those come in from the side, so you have to kind of manage your space. Unfortunately, I was not able to play in 2-player mode, but this seems like a game that would probably be fun to do in 2-player because since the power-ups spawn at regular intervals, it wouldn't be like some of the games where I've played where in 2-player mode you're basically at an overall deficit because you just don't have enough power-ups to get both players powered up in a reasonable amount of time. Do you guys have any questions?
No.
I don't.
I'm good.
Okay, well, overall, I actually had a good amount of fun with this. I'm not super great at this kind of game, but it's enjoyable and it's not like super punishing. Probably even less punishing if I remembered the space dive button. But I'm usually focused on trying to dodge and position for like it does the thing that most top-down and even side-on shooters do, where enemies appear in. It even said this in the ad copy. They appear in like lines. And usually you want to try to line yourself up in a position where you can shoot along the line so that you can start working on the next enemy as soon as you kill the previous one. So yeah, I actually had a good amount of fun with this, and if you like this kind of game, I would probably recommend giving it a shot. But Adam, what's the damage price-wise?
$10.
That's actually quite reasonable. So yeah, I think this is a pretty good deal, and I recommend checking it out.
Okay then.
I'm curious if the very high-end chips have some other balancing mechanism besides the overheat meter being shorter. Like the fourth ship, which I just unlocked, has literally half the overheat meter of the other ones, as the first one rather. So, but also they tend to get bigger, so maybe a bigger hitbox. I don't know.
Okay. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Right then. So that'll about do it for not just the review here, but the review session. And so coming up on the week ahead, on Wednesday, February 17th, we'll be having Minhui Kohari of Cage Studios. They are the developer of the Sherwood Extreme game that we just featured a couple of episodes back in this session. So
We'll get to ask them if they've actually read Robin Hood or just kind of liked the idea.
Among other questions. Like, that is provided that they confirm. It's like I've sent two reminder emails and I haven't heard anything. So that's I'll state it in the here and now. We could also be having part 8 of 80 Days. So have that on standby. No Friday show this week. No guest slated, but Eddie has a thing to do on Friday anyway. So y'all can sleep in as much as you can on that day. And as always, we will be having a new episode of Last News Desk on the Left right after the main episode of Fragments Silicon this week. So until then, I shall wish you good gaming.